Protocols are at the heart of how a VPN works. They all have to use one, and there are several to choose from. And that decision dictates how all your data is protected and transferred, so it's not to be taken lightly. There are a handful of proven, top-of-the-line protocols, a handful of dated, obsolete, and borderline dangerous ones, as well as a surprisingly large range of bespoke protocols created by VPN providers themselves. In this video, we're going to go over some of them as quickly as we can to cover off all of the most important bits, as well as explaining what a protocol actually does and how you can make the most informed choice when picking one when you use a VPN. I'm Callum, and you're watching Top 10 VPN. Let's get started. Put simply, a protocol is a set of rules that determine how a VPN transfers your data between your device and the VPN server. Differences in protocol can affect speeds, latency, security, anonymity, and compatibility. Each protocol is compatible with a different set of encryption standards they can be paired with, which will determine exactly how your data is encrypted. And while there is a consensus best protocol, the one you choose as best for you might depend on what it actually is that you're doing online. Let's take a look at 3 of them. Number 1, WireGuard. WireGuard first released to the public in 2019, and while it was very promising, it carried the tag of unproven for a number of years. However, enough time has passed that now ourselves and most other online security experts feel confident in recommending it as the best overall VPN protocol going. It has a significantly shorter code base than its main rival, and what this means is that it's lightweight. It uses less code to do everything that it needs to do without compromising on security. And the result is that there's less room for things to go wrong. It's easier for VPNs to implement, it uses less data, and provides a faster connection, and it's quicker and easier to audit. In fact, it's so good that a number of VPN services actually choose to use it as the basis for their own custom protocols. If you see WireGuard being offered, then choose it with confidence. Number 2, OpenVPN. OpenVPN has been a trusted, proven, safe VPN protocol for over 20 years now. It was also the gold standard for a large part of that time until WireGuard came to the fore. It's still an excellent, valid choice today. It's open source, highly configurable, and highly compatible. Or, in other words, you can tweak it to get it running just how you like, as can the VPN companies themselves to help maximize performance. The downside is that it's more than 20 times as bloated as WireGuard in terms of the code it runs on. As a result, while it's still very capable of being super fast, it's not going to match WireGuard for speed, at least hypothetically anyway, as so much of it comes down to the implementation by the VPN itself. We have seen VPNs in our testing that are faster on OpenVPN, but that's an exception rather than the rule. OpenVPN will also use more data than WireGuard, which can be a problem if you're using a VPN on your smartphone and aren't on a Wi-Fi connection. It's available on just about every VPN in existence though, and you can even use its free client to set up a VPN of your own. If you're using a VPN and having issues with WireGuard, then you shouldn't hesitate to rely on OpenVPN instead. Number 3, IPv2 IPSec. IPv2 is the VPN protocol, and IPSec is the method of encryption that it's paired with, which is why you'll usually see this long and slightly intimidating name inside of your VPN app. There's nothing to be afraid of here though, as it's a useful, quick choice of protocol. It's especially great for when you're on the move, as it's designed to prevent your connection from dropping when you move between Wi-Fi hotspots and cellular data. It's kept super fast because, just like with WireGuard, it has a much smaller bandwidth overhead on top of your normal unencrypted connection. It uses less than half as much extra bandwidth as OpenVPN does, actually. Unlike the last 2 options though, it's closed source. Sort of. Ordinarily, this would be a pretty big downside, as it means knowledgeable, well-meaning nerds online can't dissect it to make sure it does what it says it's doing. However, the Linux version of IPv2 is open source and has been vetted as safe, so we think we can assume that other versions are all safe too. IPSec, however, is another matter. It's been suggested that IPSec was deliberately weakened when it was created to give it a potential backdoor for the US government. We have no way of knowing for sure that IPSec has been compromised by the NSA or whoever else or not, but I'd understand if the suggestion alone is enough to turn you away from it. Those are the 3 big, widely available VPN protocols that are worth using, but there are a great deal more protocols out there that you might encounter in your adventures with VPNs. We don't need to go over all of them right now, but what we will do is mention the big 3 that you should avoid: L2TP IPSec, PPTP, and SSTP. L2TP and PPTP are both very outdated. L2TP was actually created as a successor to PPTP, and it's still outdated. It's being phased out pretty swiftly now, and the coding is so complex that in implementing it, many VPNs leave themselves vulnerable to exploits, and even when running correctly, it's slow. PPTP wasn't even created this side of the millennium. It's extremely vulnerable, fragile, and flawed at this point, what with it being, more than 25 years old. In 2016, it was discovered its encryption can be cracked in less than 3 minutes. As for SSTP, it's the only one of these three protocols that's actually functional. It's great at beating web censorship, especially. The reason to avoid it is that it is both closed source and owned by Microsoft. Not that you'll usually have much of a choice in the matter, it's barely available in any VPNs nowadays. You could use WireGuard instead most of the time. That leaves us with one last topic to cover: proprietary protocols. It's not as complicated as it sounds. It's just the term used to describe protocols that are created by the VPNs themselves. And they're usually pretty good too. Sometimes they use existing protocols as a base that's then built around, and sometimes they're entirely brand new creations. The fact that they can be maintained and optimized firsthand by the VPN itself usually means they reach performance levels that can match or even surpass the likes of WireGuard. A non-exhaustive list of notable proprietary protocols includes Lightway by ExpressVPN, NordLynx by NordVPN, StealthVPN and OpenWeb by Astral, and Hydra by Hotspot Shield. The downside to a lot of these proprietary protocols, however, is that they're often closed source and unaudited, so we often don't know how a number of them work or whether or not they're to be trusted. We usually do choose to trust them, given that the VPN service providers behind them often have long-standing reputations that have often been proven in other respects. But if you'd rather stick with, say, WireGuard, I respect your decision. For the most part, you'll be fine allowing your VPN to choose your protocol for you. With either WireGuard, OpenVPN, or an effective proprietary protocol as a default solution, your data is usually in good hands. If you have something more specific in mind, though, it can't hurt to do your own research. There's lots more detailed information in our dedicated guide to protocols, which you can find linked in the description to this video. Good luck, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.